Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, so this video is going to be a short video. I've got 3 separate thoughts I wanted to share with you. So I think one of the things I'm starting to realize as I listen to people and watch social media, YouTube, etc., you're starting to see a shift happening. People are finally starting to question the reality that they were taught. Now, I'm sure by now a lot of you guys have heard about Terrence Howard, the actor. He's kind of come up with some crazy stuff. Now, some of it actually I've heard before, and that I'm like, okay, but then the 1 times 1, what does he say? It equals 2, and everyone's like, no, it equals 1. So he's challenging a mathematical rule, I guess you could say. So even that, okay, even for me, that's a little bit kind of out there, but I have heard, I read this in a book. In fact, I'm sure I still have it. It's some spiritual book I did for a long time ago. And it was essentially saying, when in nature does 1 times 1 or 1 plus 1 equal 2 or 1 times 1 equal 1? I thought, well, what do you mean? Like, well, when a man and a woman come together and they have sex, well, they have a baby. That's 3 or more, because sometimes you could have twins or triplets. Now, here's the deal. This video is not about saying right or wrong. I'm just trying to share some open thoughts with you. That's all it is. Okay, so the music will be going down in about 60 seconds. Okay, so I would say probably the biggest challenge that we have, especially as Christians, and if you're a non-Christian on this channel, you're absolutely welcome. I went to Buddhist temple for a long time, so I'm very, very open, very open-minded, and very open person. I want to learn and have always wanted to learn from different perspectives. So what happened, okay, so the challenge we have is this, and I'm just going to use our religion because I'm not a specialist in Buddhism or even in being a Muslim, etc. But in this religion but it's the same in all religions though, and that's one thing I noticed when I went to Buddhist temple was, all right, so here was my assumption. So this is going to wrap up what I was saying just now. So I just assumed that all Buddhists were very, very spiritual, like they really got it, okay? So when I went to temple, I would go during the week when there was pretty much nobody there but the monks and some of the nuns, and some of the people would bring the monks food. So, all right, so my experience with the monks was actually pretty cool. So they treated me like another monk, especially the first temple not Richmond, but the one in Stockton. So Buddha Calm had accepted me as another monk. He even stated it so out loud. He even gave me the what do they call it, the little beanie thing, and the little the robe, and all that stuff. So one thing my ex-girlfriend said, she was Laotian, and she had said, it's the weirdest thing in the world. She goes, you are invited back to the monks' quarters. She says, nobody is allowed back there except for monks. She goes, I've never seen that in my life. And it was the same thing at the Richmond temple. Now, I went there alone. She didn't go there with me. So there was no real introduction. I just started showing up, and the monks just took me in immediately, and I would have lunch with them on a regular basis, actually, I would say once or twice a week. And it was the same thing. I'd go in the back and we'd watch TV or, whatever. And I remember some of the Laotian people would look and like, what's that white dude going back there? So it was kind of a really cool experience. So I want to share some things with you that I began to notice. I had a really good, what is the word I'm looking for? A very broad spectrum learning on radically different religions and spiritual beliefs and energy teachings that all happen to coincide. And some of the teachings that I learned from Buddhism absolutely, what's the word I want to say? It not only strengthened my belief in Jesus, but it clarified it. The main one that I learned from Buddhism, but also from energy healing, was to look within. But here's the thing. A lot of you have read your Bible and you never even noticed that Jesus literally says, look within. So here I am studying, I was in Hawaii studying Huna, and one of the basic techniques is, not basics, there was a series of techniques that they taught us, 1 or 2 every day. So the beginning of class, before we started class, we'd have to do this Ha breathing technique, and then dropping our awareness inside, expanding our awareness. So they taught us a series of techniques throughout the training. Now, at the time I knew they were very important. It was part of the training, and it was going to help me to understand and learn better. So I was very much into it, but I didn't make the connection, not yet. So then they started talking about, God, there's so much, man. I should make a separate video on this. So I pulled out this booklet from, it's a home training program that I bought after I studied Huna in Hawaii. And it's got 3 circles right on top of each other. In the middle it says higher conscious mind, and then the lowest one it says unconscious mind. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 from top to bottom. Now that's the American Western psychology terms. Now on the left is the Huna, or energy healing, and there's 2. So you have the inner expression, which is on the left, and the outer. So that's left brain, or sorry, that would be right brain, and then the left brain, okay, on the outer. Okay, now you guys know I've talked about left brain and right brain a lot. So on the left side it says Aumakua, and then the middle one says Uhane, and then the lowest one says Unihipili. On the right one, the top one, so ours is higher conscious, and the right one, there's that. Now this is the outer expression of the left brain, Kane. Now notice how it's hard, like the left brain is like hard, like consonant. The right brain is soft, smooth, warm, like round and soft, okay? The left brain is squares and triangles, it's hard, okay? So the right brain is more circles and spirals. Okay, so let's start for the outer expression. It says Kane, and then the middle is Lono, and then Ku. Again, these are very left brain external, words. So those mean higher conscious, and then middle one conscious mind, and then the lowest one unconscious mind, okay? So you start to realize and go, well, wait a minute, this sounds very similar to Western psychology, because it is. In fact, it's exactly. So another one they taught us was the word mana. Now, for the longest time, I just kind of went past me. So they said the word, I've heard it, I've read it, they taught it to us in the trainings, but once again, I didn't make the connection. And I remember in class they were talking about essentially that mana is the spiritual energy that we live off of. So I'm looking at the booklet right here about that, and it talks about ho'o mana. So ho'o means to make. Mana is energy. Now there's different names for energy. So number 1 is energy. Another one is chi. Another one is ki. Another one is called life force. Okay. So I remember we were going over this, and when they said it came, how did they say it? I don't want to, I'm going to just say it the way if I kind of remember it. But it's like the energy that comes into you from above. Okay. Now, when I was in Hawaii, I read my Bible every morning and every evening. And I don't know if that's what it was, but I remember sitting in class going, wait a minute, that sounds really familiar. Man does not live on bread and water alone. He lives off of the manna from God. So I was sitting there going, hey, wait a minute, there's a little similarity going on here. So I just Googled some stuff. I didn't quite find what I wanted, but this is good enough. So this is from Christianity.com, and the title is this: What did Jesus mean by man shall not live on bread alone? Okay. It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God, Matthew 4:4. Now, I'm going to scroll down. So it says here, the Holy Spirit descended upon him, and a voice was heard from heaven saying, this is my Son, whom I love, with whom I am well pleased. Man shall not live on bread and water alone, but on every word. People need to be fed mentally and spiritually, and have the five senses nourished, and live with a purpose in their life. Okay, so here, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, here we go. Alright, I'm going to pull back up. So it says, Jesus simply quoted the words of Moses recorded in Deuteronomy 8:3 in reply, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Both Moses and Jesus meant that people need more than simple necessities to keep them alive. People need to be fed mentally and spiritually, have the five senses nourished, and live with a purpose in their lives. Who talks about that a lot? That would be me, the right brain. The emotional processor, mental, emotional, and spiritual processor, the five senses. Let me reread it. It says people need to be fed mentally and spiritually, have the five senses nourished, and live with a purpose in their lives. Alright, I've got something else for you. By the way, I'm just so proud of myself right now. So watch this. So then it says, God provides us with all we need to fulfill these human essentials in His words, spirit, and creation. How many times have I said the right brain is the emotional, spiritual, creative brain? Okay, so now let me read this part. Alright, this is getting better. I'm actually, I damn near cried right there, because I've been saying that for years, actually decades. I've been teaching it to my male clients about the emotional, creative, spiritual, right brain, etc. How it's the internal brain, look within, all that stuff. I've been teaching that for a long time. The reason why I'm almost crying is because the words emotional, spiritual, creative brain, I never really got that from the Bible. I'm just reading it right now going, wow, that's actually what this Christian group is saying is, where did it go? I have to scroll back up. Yeah, God provides us with all we need to fulfill these human essentials in His word, spirit, and creation. Okay, so I want to make really clear, I know a lot of you probably going, oh yeah, he's really pushing the Christian thing here. No, I'm not. I'm actually showing you something. It's everywhere. So whoever Jesus said that all those who believe in Him would have eternal life and receive the Holy Spirit to live within them as a constant companion to guide and nourish them. Okay? Jesus saying, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. So all I'm referencing is this whole thing about mana. It's spiritual energy. So we in the Western world pronounce it manna, not mana. So in the last couple sentences that I read from the Bible, from Jesus speaking, it clearly says, it's not, how to say this, I don't have to reread it. He says, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. So clearly he's not talking about a loaf of bread, because a lot of people are like, oh, no, there's actually bread that they make that they call manna. Yeah, but that's actually more symbolic. In fact, the whole point we started out with where Jesus says, man does not live on bread and water alone. Okay, I found it. It's in Deuteronomy 8:3. Says he humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feeding you with manna, which neither you nor your ancestors had known, to teach you that man does not, N-O-T, does not live on bread alone. Okay? So clearly he's talking about spiritual energy. Okay, so my purpose for sharing all that is I began to see a connection between all of this. In fact, it's exactly like Spanish and English. Hola means hello, hello means hola. It's just two different words. It doesn't mean that they're wrong because they don't speak English. So then I had raised my hand and Dr. Tad James was, yes, Michael. I was like, well, this sounds exactly like what they teach in the Bible about the manna from God, etc. And he said, yeah, and he had a real big grin on his face like, you're getting it. So let me tell you guys something. The reason why Narcissist went after you is because you are good supply of manna. You have the energy of God inside you. So narcissists essentially have blocked themselves, cut themselves off from God, and everything is logical, but they still need that spiritual energy. Without it, they can't survive. So this is what we call narcissists. They're energy vampires. They suck the life out of you, literally. Mana, the energy from God, is life force, literally. So there's a couple things I want to say here. Number one, when they get the energy from you, it's kind of like used energy. Okay, it's like, well, this is partially used. It's not as clean as when you get it from the fresh source of God. So they literally pull up to you and they connect to your solar plexus area. And one of the ways they suck the energy from you is by scaring you, pissing you off, and upsetting you. Okay, when they can get you emotional, boom, they're just, they're siphoning that energy off. It's like pushing, the gas pump when you pull the thing all the way down and it just pumps it in fast, right? And they're like, oh yeah, this feels great. This is why a lot of times when you get into an argument, a fight with a narcissist, they start to smile because it's refreshing to them. So it's literally like they're pulling up to a gas pump. So instead of going inside and giving the cashier, 20, 40, 50 bucks or whatever, for the gas, they just yell at the gas pump and they scream or they play mind games, they gaslight and they do all this stuff. And then when you get all excited and emotional, angry and pissed off and frustrated or scared, it's like pump, 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 pump. You're just pumping them right up. So here's what you do. You cut them off completely. You block them on everything, okay? Like even on, they can make fake social media sites or whatever. And all you do is just, if you, like there's a lot of times like, this is a narcissist, boom, I'll just block them. I'm constantly blocking narcissists from my page. That's why my page is so peaceful. Page, what I mean is channel, so my YouTube channel. It's a very peaceful channel because anytime I start getting a narcissist on the boom, I just cut them off. Like, nope, not going to be here. So the other technique is, I think they call it gray rocking or cold stoning them or whatever. So you just don't get emotional. You just, when you realize what they're looking for, you can almost grin. You can actually even laugh at them. And it basically keeps them from getting any supply from you. You're just like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm not playing your games. And it really, because they get very desperate, like they need energy. So a lot of people like, well, can narcissists change? Yes and no. The only way that they will change is if you make them. How do you do that? By cutting off supply. By blocking them, by refusing to deal with them. So here's what's going to happen. If the world makes a decision like, we're done with these games, we're not going to play your games anymore, we're not going to allow you to do it, we're cutting you off from all of our supply, this will force them to finally surrender and open up to God to get original, I don't know what the right word, let me just say it this way, like original energy from the original source, which is God. And then what happens? A massive transformation. All of a sudden, they're getting original energy from the original source, which is God, which is love and peace and harmony and goodness. They will transform. So, all of you know already that like once you live a narcissist, you can never, ever let them come back. Number one, they're just going to suck the life force energy out of you, literally. Number two, well, they're just going to abuse you again. And then number three, they're going to abandon you again and rip your heart and soul out. Number four, well, they don't need to open up to God because they can just come to you when they need some source energy. And the devil may care attitude continues on because you keep accepting them back into your life. When people start to realize these people, once you recognize them, you have to cut them off. It is the only way we are going to change the world. So until then, a narcissist is going, well, why would I change? I mean, this is easy. I get to steal from people, and I have fun hurting people, and I mean, it's a blast, man. Okay, so let's go back to the original intention of this video. So I started noticing similarities between three different forms of energy healing, and I started noticing, did I say differences? I meant similarities. Yeah, I did say similarities. So I started noticing, like, well, wait a minute, like what's going on here? Like, they're different, totally different teachings, yet everything's the same, just using a different word. So one of the things I'm training is called pranic healing. So the energy is called prana, right? The prana. So I'm going to look at this list here again in the Huna book. So you've got energy, you got chi, and you got ki, and you got life force, and then you have prana, right? And that would also, well, actually mana is the one that's above that. So I'm starting to notice similarities in everything, from the Bible to Jesus to God to Huna to Reiki to Pranic healing to Buddhist teachings to everything. I'm like, wait a minute, these are literally the exact same things. The only difference is we're using a different word. Hola means hello. So on this list we have for the different words for energy, you have life force, you have energy, you have chi, and you have ki. Well, in Reiki, they use the word ki. So let me actually read something off I found. So ki is the life force energy that animates all living things, says Joan, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Moat, a licensed Reiki master teacher who practices in Waikola, Hawaii. Put together, and Rei and Ki means spiritually guided life force energy. Now I'm trained in Pranic healing. Well, that one is from the Philippines, and we call that Pra. So Reiki comes from Japan, and from the Philippines comes Pranic healing, and that's Prana. So you're looking at all this stuff, whether you call it mana, whether you call it chi, prana, life force, ki, energy healing, energy medicine, it's all the same thing. Now, another thing I began to notice, and I actually noticed it, I noticed it when I was learning some Buddhism meditation and grounding techniques. Hold on, let me go back one second. Okay, so I'm going back to that Christianity.com blog, and it said that the title is, "What Did Jesus Mean by Man Shall Not Live on Bread Alone?" Just so you know, it's January 5th, 2024 for this blog. So it says, what does bread signify, meaning symbolize, in the Bible? So it says the 40 days Jesus spent in the desert has echoes of the Israelites wandering the wilderness for 40 years, led by a pillar of fire and cloud provided by God, as well as manna, a type of food from heaven to sustain them physically. Now, I want you to stop and think. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert. Do you guys remember anything about that? Did he eat food? No, he didn't. So mana is not physical bread, it's spiritual energy. Alright, so let me read this real quick. I just googled this. So it says, he ate nothing during those days, and when they were over, he was hungry. Now I'm going to go down a little bit more. So it says, Mark tells us that Jesus was tempted by Satan, but it is in Matthew and Luke. The details of the temptation are fleshed out. All three accounts say that Jesus went without food for 40 days. Alright, so I started to just notice, so overall what I'm saying is all these different words mean the same thing, whether it's mana, life force, ki, chi, prana energy, etc. Like there's literally spiritual energy. Now the other thing that I noticed was, again, they were teaching us internal awareness techniques. Now they weren't calling them that though, they were calling them like the technique name. And I don't think anyone in Hawaii, they may have said this, but being such a left brain male at the time, it literally probably went past my head. I probably didn't even hear it. So I was learning these internal awareness techniques, and I had read the Bible many times, and I heard read what Jesus said, but it didn't register because those are very right brain words. And ladies, a lot of times when you use words, they literally, right brain words, they literally don't register in the male's left brain. So it's literally like he didn't hear it. So luckily though, I was practicing these techniques like my life depended on it. I mean, I was doing it, as they said, I did it every day. I did it in the hotel when I got back to my room at night. When I woke up in the morning, I was really on it, and I did it for years and years and years. And I started noticing similarities. Like one of the things was when I went back to, I remember I was in temple and they were teaching more internal awareness techniques, etc. And then I remember when I read the Bible, I was like, wait a minute, Jesus says that, look within. The reason why this is all about looking within is because, number one, that's how you open up to God's energy. That's how you receive God's life forces. Call it mana, or manna, as the Western people say it. Now, I just came across this in that booklet in Huna. It says ho'omana. Now, these are Hawaiian words, by the way, if you haven't figured that out. Ho'omana. It literally means to empower. This is why when you work with me, you begin to develop these skills on how to connect with your energy, how to connect with your life force, which really is your power. So you know how you can go to like motivational seminars and get really fired up, like a Tony Robbins seminar or something? And you come home and for about a week, maybe a month, you're fired up, but then it kind of goes away. You connected with that speaker's mana. You connected with the mana of the room. You didn't connect with your mana, with the energy that was meant for you from God. So what I do is teach you a series of techniques on how to connect with your energy, to connect with your literal life force, your literal power. Call it mana, call it chi, call it ki, call it life force, call it whatever. So once you learn how to do this, you can do it at a moment's notice. You can go, okay, well, I've got to go through these series of techniques to drop down back inside and reconnect, and boom, you're plugged in. So you're not dependent on me. The goal is not for you to experience my energy. The goal is for you to experience your energy and learn how to do it on your own. One thing I want to mention is the Indian culture, the American Indians. I have not done a lot of studying, but I have had experience with Indians. Let me think. When I was very young, and I've had some clients that were Indians and some that were learning like Indian tribal stuff, and they're like, "Wow, this is exactly what they teach in our tribe, or they teach in our, this certain like." Ceremony we have to do. Like, this is the same thing. So my point is this: these teachings are throughout the world. They're the same teachings, they're just using different languages. So one of the things they taught us in Hawaii was these core teachings were hidden And what happened was there was this evil, I don't remember this exact story, but there was this evil that came to the world and they had to hide it. It might have even been the white man, seriously, if I remember right. And what they did was they spread it to the four corners of the earth. Sounds like the Bible again. So when you study the Maori people and the Aborigines of the Maori people of New Zealand and the Aborigines of Australia, and then who were the other? The Hawaiians, and then the Tongan, and the what is Samoa? The Samoans. So when you start to study their religious spiritual teachings, you're like, well, wait a minute, these are the same things. So these teachings are here and have always been here. They had to hide them. For example, up until I think it was 1968 or 1972, the Hawaiians they made a law that made it illegal to practice their spiritual teachings. Now, when I say made a law, I mean the white people did. Okay, they came along and said, hey man, you can't do that stuff. So what did they do? They hid Huna in the hula. This is how they kept the teachings, because otherwise they would have lost them. So the hula dance is a language, literally. Kind of cool, huh? So they do these wave movements, which means the ocean and the waves and the this and the that and the birds and the trees and the winds. And so the hidden teachings were hidden within that. Now what people are finally waking up, and when I mean people, I mean Western people. The same teachings are in our Bible, are in our teachings. You have to remember or reread your Bible. Jesus taught his disciples how to heal people. He literally taught them how to do this. And then he said, now go in pairs unto the world and I forget the word, but do the same. Yeah, I think it was go in pairs unto the world and do the same unto others. In other words, teach them. So when you start learning Reiki and Huna and all this the energy healing stuff, you're like, wait a minute, Jesus did that. Like, yeah. There's a point in The Chosen, the movie series, where he helps the blind woman, and Jesus, he holds his hand up to the sky, like to God or to the light, and then he brings it into the woman's eyes, and then boom, she can see. That's a Reiki technique. So a lot of you are wondering, well, how do you know this stuff? You know, you're like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. Maybe this video is probably new, but you're looking back at all the things I've taught you, you're like, well, how do you know all this stuff? It's like, well, because I've learned it from other sources, and then it's like, hey, wait a minute, Jesus did that, Jesus said that, and all of a sudden you start putting the pieces together. You know, like Buddha always talks about look within, because that's how you access your spiritual world, your spiritual power, you know, etc., etc. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute, Jesus said that. And like, oh, and then I forgot what I said or what I brought up, but Buddha Calm looked at me and says, yeah, well, Jesus is one of our top 5 teachers. Excuse me, top 5 great teachers, highly revered, highly respected. Now there's 2 Buddhas that you're aware of, but you think they're the same person. So a lot of people think, oh, this Buddha must have just changed. Okay, so there's the Buddha that he did nothing but drink water, and then he filtered earth through his t-shirt, and he drank the minerals from that, and that's how he survived. He lived that way for a long, long time. And so that was the Buddha that came from the king, the wealthy king, and you know, his father didn't let him go out in the city, and so he stayed within the castle walls, and he snuck out with like his servant or the person that protected him or whatever, and he saw old people. He goes, what's that? And he goes, oh, well, they're old. And he's like, what's old? Like, he didn't know what old meant because he'd never seen it. And then he saw people that were sick and crippled, and he's like, what's wrong with them? He's, oh, well, they're sick, or they're crippled, or they were born that way. He's like, why? Like, he could, because his father protected him from all of this. So this was the Buddha, and I probably should look up the names, but I'm not gonna because I want to wrap this video up. This was the Buddha that was known to be very skinny, okay? Now most people are like, yeah, and then he got fat, right? Like, no, two totally complete separate Buddhas. So the fat Buddha went through what I went through when I went through that meditation phase, and then I just I gave up. I just completely let go, and that's when I had my first spiritual awakening, because that's the secret, is the art of learning how to completely and totally let go of everything. And then I had my 6-month awakening where I had these healing abilities, awareness, and all kinds of stuff. It was incredible. And what you realize is all that stuff that you worry about, it's nothing. It's nothing. And you finally realize it was never about perfection. It was never about following a series of rules. Wait a minute, didn't Jesus say something like that? Oh yeah, he did. That's right. It's not about the rules. He said love is the fulfillment of all the commandments. Love. And you begin to realize life is a gift from God that was meant to be enjoyed, and that's why the fat Buddha became fat, because he's like, hey, I'm here to enjoy this experience. So, in the Bible, Jesus disappears, I believe it was at the age of 11 or 12, okay? So he kind of became famous, and he's in the Bible, and the scholars like, wow, they were so amazed at his wisdom. And then suddenly he disappeared as if he was just gone, poof. But then it says, at the age of 28, he came back from the East. So what's east of Bethlehem or the Middle East? Well, that would be India, Burma, all those areas over there, Southeast Asia, Buddhist territory. So he woke up when he was 28 years old, and he arrived when he was 29. So usually if you have a major spiritual awakening, it's going to happen just after your 28th birthday. That's exactly what happened to me. It was about 2 weeks after my 28th birthday. Alright, so let me read something off. Now this is from Wikipedia. I'm not going to quote this as biblical. It says, then he went to the Himalayas and spent time in Tibetan monasteries studying Buddhism, and through Persia returned to Jerusalem at the age of 29. Okay, so what did Jesus do at the age of 29? That was the title. But that was Wikipedia, so I'm not going to quote that. That's probably from a book that was written about Jesus. So the reason why I'm bringing it up is a lot of people don't know that Jesus went to the East and then came back. So the question has always been, well, what happened to Jesus between the age of 12 and 29? So let me actually read something from Wikipedia. I'm going to go right to it. So it says, in the 19th and 20th centuries, theories began to emerge that between the ages of 12 and 29, Jesus had visited India and Nepal for spiritual enlightenment, inspiring from Hinduism, or studied with the Essenes in the Judean desert. Modern mainstream Christian scholarship has generally rejected these theories and holds that nothing is known about this time period in the life of Jesus. So you mean to tell me not one single person, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Peter, not only them, but people in the city, like not one person say, hey, yo, like, where you been, yo? I'm sorry, but I find that ridiculously hard to believe that nobody thought, hey man, that's kind of interesting, because Jesus had a big in his hometown. He was kind of like, whoa, he was like this scholarly genius child of how does he know these texts so well of the Bible? Not just the memorizing of it, but the actual understanding on a really high level, wisdom level of like an 80-year-old man who studied it his whole life. I mean, they were saying that this child was for sure blessed by God. And yet, no one bothered to ask? No, I think this was hidden from us once again. In fact, I am sure that would have been the number one fireplace conversation. Like, hey man, like where'd you go? Like, why you been, like what? You've been gone for a long time. It wasn't like he was gone for 6 months. I mean, he was gone from 12 to 29. Of course, this was mainstream conversation. Now here's the deal. I didn't believe any of this because, oh, someone said this to me. No, it's because I kept learning all this stuff. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Jesus did that. Jesus said this. Jesus said that. Jesus did this. And then I remember that's what it was. And then a monk said, well, yeah, you know, he actually studied Buddhism for a long time. He came to the East, etc. I'm like, wait, no, he didn't. He's like, yeah, he's one of our great teachers. I'm like, what? So I actually started asking other monks, other people. Now a lot of Buddhist people don't know this, by the way. A lot of regular people, but the monks, they know this. Okay, so I'm coming back to this the next day. This was getting pretty long-winded. So one thing I wanted to wrap up is that I brought up earlier is that Buddhists are just like Christians in the sense that you have very religious people, but then you have very spiritual people. And that even includes the monks, okay? So one thing I learned about some of the monks, they will just become a monk so they can come to America for a better life, etc. They stay a monk for so many years and then they basically go live out in public. But then you've got monks that are extremely spiritual. They can do energy healing. I mean, I had this one monk, Buddha Calm. That guy was one of the best healers. There's only 1, 2, and then Uncle George Naopi. 1, 2, 3. I'm trying to think if there's a few others, but there's 3 people that stand out in my mind that are just absolute rock solid healers. So what I'm trying to say is that I would say in general, Buddhist people, especially if they're from Southeast Asia, they're just a lot more used to spiritual experiences. Like my ex-girlfriend's like, oh yeah, my dad was a monk for a while and he did all these energy healing things, and then Buddha Calm was their family monk in their village in Laos. And so when I went through this awakening, I was doing these amazing spiritual healings and all kinds of stuff. I was like, isn't this kind of freaking you out? Because I was just like, whoa, what the hell is this? She was amazed. It was interesting, but I think with her, she's like, you know, it doesn't scare me or bother me because this is just the way our life was growing up in Laos. And the other thing is the Buddhist religion is more of a right brain spiritual experience, whereas Western religions tend to be very logical, very left brain, very rule oriented. And so that would be the difference between a religion versus a spiritual practice. Another thing that I would say stood out was you can be Buddhist if you go to temple just one time. There's no shame, there's no guilt, there's no blame, there's no punishment if you don't go to church every Sunday, you know. There's nothing. It's like if you want to go, you go. If you don't, you don't. I mean, in general, you go because you want to. And if a family member dies, or if you need an energy healing or spiritual healing from the monk. So I really like that. There's like, you know, if you don't even go once a year, you're still considered Buddhist if you want to be. In other words, it wasn't religious. It was spiritual. You go when you want and you go when you need. Okay, I'll give you another one that I actually learned while I was sitting in Psychology 1. Now it was a combination of I was reading my Bible intensely every day, twice a day, morning and evening, and I was going to, to church in the mornings and also in the afternoons, sometimes the evenings, so 3 times on Sundays, and a Bible study. I was really just reading and studying, and I'm learning about psychology, and it's about the left brain, the right brain, the lower brain. I'm like, wait a minute, that's like the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. I was like, oh. See, the right brain is the female brain, the feminine brain, the emotional, creative, spiritual brain. So the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And the lower brain is the reptilian brain, which would be like a spoiled little brat child, like a narcissist. The left brain is about rules, structure, organization, like a father. And then years later, I'm studying Huna, and they're talking about the 3 levels from the top, circle, middle. So, and this page says spiritual, mental, and then emotional, right? So the top one's spiritual, next one's mental, and then emotional. And on the other one, they call it, where'd it go? Okay, here it is. So you've got the higher conscious, conscious mind, and unconscious. And then they got Almakua, Uhane, Unihipili. So level 1, level 2, level 3. And I thought, oh, this teaching is universal. It's everywhere. Ola means hello. So, sorry. One thing is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, they divided us all. There was a lot of things that happened. They separated our religions. The teachings were, they were taught, they were hidden within the religion. They're hidden within the text. And I think part of it might be because really these teachings are really only for people who earn them, people who wake up spiritually, who begin to come from the heart. And I think that's really the secret key there. And I think there are books. I think one of the book is, I want to say the book of Enoch. It's one of the books that was banned from the Bible. It should have been in the Bible. They talk about Enoch in Genesis chapter 3 or chapter 6. I'm drawing a blank on that right now. But all I'm saying is this. The truth has been hidden from us for a long, long time. And we are now entering the age of Aquarius from Pisces. So Pisces is like the fish that are underwater. It's kind of dark. It's kind of murky, etc. Whereas we're entering an age where it's about truth. What we're entering is what Jesus died for. The whole idea of Jesus dying on the cross, that one day, as he said in the Chosen, or in the Bible I should say, he said one day it won't be about, praying at this mountain or praying at this synagogue or being the right skin color, race, or culture. It's going to be anybody can pray to God from anywhere, from the heart, spirit, and truth. The core teachings were, hidden in the Maori system, in the Aborigines, in the Pacific Islanders, like the Hawaiian hula, and it was because it was outlawed. And the white man or the people, it's really not white people, it's just evil people came along and said, hey, you can't practice those teachings. Why? Because it will empower people, and they cannot control you if you find your own personal power. If you start to think for yourself, right brain, all of a sudden, they can't control us. And that is exactly what this is all about. The narcissist, the seed of Cain, all of that stuff. It did everything in its power to completely control us, shut us down from our higher power, from our higher intelligence, from our higher spirit, so we wouldn't know any better. Not only have they controlled us, they've tortured us, they've beat us, they've done the most horrendous things that you can imagine to the human race. One of the things they've done? They've given you this either-or mentality. And it's caused you to go, well, you're either in my religion or you're going to hell. And that is literally like, wait, what the hell? And what it does, it causes you never, ever, ever to look, or even to understand, like, well, why do you believe that? You don't want to listen. You don't want to hear it. And what does that do? It puts you in a box of blindness and deafness. You have eyes, yet you cannot see. You have ears, yet you cannot hear. The truth is everywhere. Once you open your eyes, you see it everywhere. It's in music, it's in poems, it's in poetry, it's in the American Indian teachings, it's in the India teachings from India, it's in Buddhist teachings, it's in the Bible, it's in the teachings of Christ. It's the same teaching being taught on every land on the planet, on every continent. But we say, oh, they're wrong. What do you mean they're wrong? They're teaching the same thing Jesus was teaching, the exact same thing. So the people who were taught to you to be your enemy were never your enemy. It was the people who told you that they were your enemy. Those are your enemies. The American Indians, the Indians from India, the Buddhists from Southeast Asia, the Christians versus the Catholics versus the Mormons versus the, whatever. Those are not your enemies. The same teachings are there. The problem is it's being spoken in a different way or in a different language. Hola means hello. If all you're getting from this is maybe Mike's trying to tell me to become a different religion, you literally missed everything I just said. That has nothing to do with what I'm saying. I'm saying dig deeper, learn more, find out for yourself. This experience was always meant to be a happy experience. This experience was meant to be a gift. That's what it was created for. It's like this image says here, you aren't meant to be understood by everyone. You're meant to blow some minds, to destroy old belief systems. So we're going from the age of Pisces, of the hidden, into the age of Aquarius, where it's all about... So the age of Pisces was the age of believing. The age of Aquarius is the age of knowing. So when people ask me, like, well, do you really believe in God? Like, believe in God? What? I go, let me ask you a question. Do you believe that I'm standing here? Like, well, of course. I go, you believe it? You don't know that I'm standing here? Well, what do you mean? See, people that are operating from the left brain, everything is about belief. So it has to be that we all have to agree and have the same belief. It's like, but dude, I'm holding this apple in my hand. I know that I have it. I don't believe that I have it. I know that I have it. If I'm talking to you, do you believe or think that I'm talking? Is it like make believe in your mind? Is it like literally? Is it make believe? Is it fake? Or can you look me in the eye right now and say, no, I know that I'm talking to you, Mike. I know that. That's the difference between believing and knowing. I don't believe in God. I know God. I've had way too many spiritual experiences to absolutely know that God exists. That Jesus... Take Jesus' teachings, greatest teachings on the planet, period, end of sentence. Do I believe that? No, I know that. Because I've studied them. But the religion captured the teachings, altered, changed, and shifted the teachings, cut out some of the teachings, and therefore you're just being taught religion. Did you know that Jesus was basically shut down after he died? And I don't know if it was, I think it was about 150 years or 200 years. So back then they didn't have computers or books or anything like that. So after a certain amount of people died that were alive during Jesus' time, or maybe the very next generation after, then they're like, now we can bring the teachings back into the church and thus bring those people back into the church to get our 10%. Ching ching. And that is what religion is all about. And the teachings were either hid or they were altered. So seek the truth. Have an open mind and be willing to learn more. In order for a lie to exist, there has to be a truth behind it. Meaning, the truth is always there, even if you were told the lie. Just look deeper and you'll see it. People of different religions, cultures, they are not your enemy. You do not have to believe them. All that I ask is that you understand them. And the same goes for me. You don't have to believe anything that I say. Just understand it. That's all. Remember, all these people from the heart, they are your brothers and they are your sisters. This is your family. Learn from each other. God bless you guys. This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Please, if you like this video, click subscribe, click the like button, go ahead and make a comment. And if you want, go ahead and make a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box. God bless you guys. I'll see you in the next video.